Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's 3 o'clock on Friday, and this is the Gulf Expat Show. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. So, welcome to the Gulf Expat Show. Today, we are going to be talking all about Turkey. So, a slight deviation from the Gulf, obviously. But what we have been requested to do is to expand a little bit, especially to Turkey, because that seems to be a destination that more and more British Muslims are considering as an expat destination, as an alternative to the Gulf or an alternative to going back to Pakistan or somewhere like that. But before we get on to talking everything about Turkey with my family, who are my co-hosts, my wife Rifka, and my son Yusuf. And we have our guests coming on the show later on from Istanbul, who've been there for a year or so, to give us their insights and information. Just to let you know what's coming up in the next couple of shows. So our next show is on Monday at 2 p.m. And in that show, we're going to be talking about everyday life in the Gulf, everyday life in Qatar, what we used to get up to, what we did to relax, what we did in our downtime, work-life balance, a little bit about that kind of stuff, some anecdotes, some stories, some funny incidents, maybe. Do we have any funny incidents?
Probably one or two. Yeah.
All right, some funny incidents, maybe some embarrassing incidents, I'm not sure. So just give you a flavor of everyday life and not kind of topic-based per se. And then the following Friday, so a week from today, inshallah, on the 22nd, at 3 o'clock, we're going to be talking about how moving to the Gulf increased or decreased or affected our iman, how it affected our behavior in terms of Islamic behavior, and also about raising children, which we attempted to do across 3 teenage boys. And on Monday's show, we'll have a guest joining us from Jeddah to give us some experiences from there. And Friday, we have a guest also from Qatar. We have a brother called Kashif, who I know very well, and he's been there as long as I had, and he'll be able to share his experiences about Iman and raising a family. But back to today's show and Turkey. Who wants to start off? Why do we think Turkey? Why are we doing this show, Yusuf? Why is Turkey now further up the agenda than it was previously?
I think more and more people see Turkey as an ideal place to move. Mm-hmm. Especially like I think it's become more of a preference than the Middle East because it's less kind of money based, and everyone who wants to kind of get away from that Dubai kind of materialistic lifestyle sees Turkey as the next best option, where everyone's kind of mellow and
how do they know it's mellow?
Because it's not.
What's that based on?
I mean, because when you think of Turkey, you don't think of like flashy skyscrapers. People don't go to Turkey for a flashy experience. They go there for a cultural experience. Everyone who's been there comes back saying, "Oh, it's really nice. I felt like I was in a really nice Muslim country." They don't come back with pictures of them like in a pool or by the Burj Khalifa. Like it's got different.
They definitely don't come back with a picture of the Burj Khalifa. That is, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
But does that not mean it's more of a holiday destination than a living destination?
Well, all living destinations can also be holiday destinations.
No, it's not true.
What do you mean? You can visit anywhere the holiday destination.
Okay, technically factual. Let's move on.
Okay. So for me, I think Turkey is, I'm always going to have an emotional connection to Turkey. My dad passed away earlier this year, and he's buried in the hills of Istanbul. So it's always going to be somewhere that I'm going to go back to and I'm going to visit. I've got family out there, so Rihana's my sister-in-law, and so I'm always going to be going back to visit them. And I think, so there's always going to be that emotional link for me with Turkey. So that's why it's somewhere where I'm kind of thinking of, maybe in a few years' time we could go there, we could settle there.
But apart from that, what was it that makes it a legitimate or a realistic destination for moving?
I think it's because...
What spurred that? I mean, that didn't happen, obviously. You know, the death was this year, but this has been an option, or we've been thinking about this as an option for longer than that.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a modern place. So for Turkey, for me, is a place which has there's that cultural pull you were talking about, Yusuf. And I think when I was growing up, whenever you heard about Muslim countries, it was always somewhere where there was a disaster happening.
Yeah.
So there's that thing, isn't there? The danger of the single story, right? And the single story that we found, and you could change the name of the place and the disaster that was happening. So it was either Bosnia, or it was Iraq, or it was, you know, wherever you went, always corruption and mismanagement in like subcontinental countries. So
yeah,
you kind of looked at all of that as a young girl growing up, or I did as a young girl growing up, feeling, all right, you obviously felt the sense of ummah and the sense of pain, but also like, can Muslims not get anything right? Is it like, are we always going to be like the victims or the ones who are suffering? When I went to
Third
Turkey,
world countries.
Yeah, when I went to Turkey when I was like 11, it was a really short stint, but I remember just being awed by like the magnificent sort of buildings, and you're that little, so everything looks so much bigger, and it was awesome. It was people were organized, things were beautiful. Muslims made things that were beautiful. I didn't know that before. So it was, so for me, that whole history of it, and look at what Muslims can do, look at what we're capable of, that was something which really hit home and made me feel really proud. And so I've always had a special spot for Turkey in that sense.
And do you think that has increased, and we'll ask this of our guests as well, but do you think that that sense of belonging has increased over the last decade or so because of the change in the political party that's come to power, and the kind of I don't want to say Islamification, but, you know, well, that's a point of view. People do feel that it's more, you know, it's a more comfortable place to practice their deen than it perhaps was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I'd have to ask the people who are there, but that's certainly the perception.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere which is more welcoming. You feel welcome. I think. Okay, so a slight tangent, but as a Muslim girl or Muslim woman from Pakistan, and everyone must have this experience when they go to Turkey. You kind of, at least 3 or 4 times when you go there, you have somebody say, "Oh, where are you from?" And you say Pakistan.
Yeah.
And they go, "Oh, your country and my country, we're like brothers, we're like sisters, we're close to each other, and we always have this long affection." And that all harks back to the fact that during the end of sort of the Ottoman Empire, you had delegations going from India, where people would literally, women would take their jewelry off to go and fund the Ottoman Empire, which was at the time sort of like going through a tough phase. Or you had doctors who went there to try and help the soldiers who were fighting, and all the rest of it. So there's this strong bond and connection, and that sense of, okay, we can all be together. And I think that lingers on.
Okay, very good. Yusuf?
Why would you want to go there?
Why would I want to go to...
From a young man's perspective, what is there? You've been there for a while. You were there for a month or so earlier this year. So
I mean, I can't compare to 20 years ago and how it's changed and stuff like that. But just in my brief visit there, I would definitely move to Turkey, and the reason for that would be because it's somewhere where, unlike here, you can practice Islam openly. You can feel comfortable, like we mentioned earlier. You can feel comfortable, just like, you know, you see people walking down the street, old men with their tasbihs doing dhikr, or people just, you know, over here, if you see someone muttering something to themselves, any non-Muslim walking past would be like, "Oh, there's a bit of a freak," right? But like, you can just walk around there and mutter to yourself, and people will understand what you're doing, right? You're not instantly, mutter to yourself. Mutter to yourself as in do dhikr, right? But like, the instant assumption over here is that it's a bit of a crazy don. Or he's got his
earphones.
No, but if he's just like, if someone's just sitting on a bench, right, and like speaking to the floor, right, over there you would understand that he's doing dhikr, whereas over here people wouldn't appreciate that. It would be seen as...
Okay, so slightly more detailed question. Then how is that different, considering this is the Gulf Expat show, technically? Why is it better for you, having lived in Qatar? Why would it be a preference for you to go now to Turkey than, for instance, to go back to Qatar?
Or
somewhere like that?
Because in Doha, it's not the same. People aren't as, unfortunately, with my experience of it, people aren't as practicing over there. And even though, okay, yeah, everyone prays and there's still like Jummah is a national thing and all of that, but
yeah,
people aren't as, it doesn't feel as Islamic still. It still feels very materialistic and very kind of like everyone's just very greedy, or the majority of people, you know, that the majority of people are there for money reasons. So you get that sense while you're living there. Whereas in Turkey, people aren't there for the money. That's not the reason people are living there. People are living there because they feel comfortable being Muslim there, the majority of people who move there. And so little things like, I know the adhan in Doha is, I mean, across the Muslim world, everyone hears the adhan, right? And that's one of the nicest things to hear.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they did this in Doha. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But in Turkey, each adhan they do is different. Like for each prayer has its own specific adhan. And that just like
style of adhan, right?
Yeah.
The adhan's the same.
Well, okay, they've got different style of adhan. Yeah, the adhan's the same, but different styles. So like Maghrib is really punchy, Asr is really long, Isha, I think. Isha is like a sad one. And that like demonstrates how the whole country revolves around Islam rather than like money or.
So we were talking about this before, and you mentioned this, and we will ask our guests whether this is. I mean, you experienced it, but I don't. Yeah. I didn't notice this when we were in Istanbul.
Yeah,
been there 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah.
If anybody has any thoughts on Istanbul, if you've been there for holiday, if you've enjoyed it, and thought, well, actually, this is somewhere I could live. If you've got any questions for us, if you can verify what Yusuf is saying about the different styles of adhan, because I must say I never noticed it. I'm sure he's right. Please do join us. You can phone us, you can text us, you can WhatsApp us. It's 07933 003 179. That's 07933 003 179. And call in, text in, and join the conversation.
I've got many other reasons why I like Turkey.
Okay. Does anybody care what I think?
Oh, we do. Why would you want to move there?
Okay. I'll give you my opinion if you insist. Is that the difference for me with Qatar, because I really love living in Qatar, as you guys know, and I'll go back there at the drop of a hat. And the thing that attracts me about Turkey is the kind of the long-termism of it, right? In Qatar, in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Riyadh, any of the Gulf countries have always got that sort of Damocles over your neck about if you don't have a job, or if you don't have your residency permit, and for some reason they decide not to renew it, you're done, you're out, right? You're 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, and you have to go. And you're at their mercy to some degree. So then you can't put down roots, you can't put down either financial or emotional roots. Turkey, there is a path to citizenship. You have that long-termism.
Yeah.
And that's then reflected in your behavior, as reflected in the way you interact with each other. And in fact, funnily enough, I was thinking about this, this is the Gulf expat show. In Turkey, you'd neither be in the Gulf nor would you be an expat, because you wouldn't have that expat mentality. You'd have that kind of migrant mentality, right? Somebody who's there to settle. And that for me is the huge difference between Turkey and the Gulf. And I still don't know if I had the equal choice which one I'd go for. But that's my view to contribute.
And I think something that I was just thinking about when you were talking was that, like, the difference between Qatar and Turkey. When I was in Qatar, I didn't get that much opportunity to interact with sort of Qatari women. Like a few times, like I tutored some Qatari women, that kind of thing. But I didn't really have like Qatari women who were my mates.
Yeah.
Or who I had lots of interaction with. In Turkey, now I don't know whether it was the state of mind I was in or whatever, but when my dad passed away, the last 2 times that I've been to Turkey, sort of over December, over January, everybody, I remember flying out there and thinking, okay, I'm going to like a really difficult point in my life, and it's like it's going to be a real struggle, and I feel completely broken. And I remember thinking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever help you give me, I'm just going to rely on that. And for me, the help that was given to me was given through, for the most part, through the Turkish people, through the customs of the Turkish people, which come from Islam. But the majority of those customs come from Islam. Through the Turkish system, which made everything so smooth to me. So I can like reel off like countless examples of like kindness and decency and dignity that was kind of afforded to me and my family during what was such a difficult sort of period.
What are a few of those examples?
So like loads of things, but like so just one example, I was taking my dad to the clinic, and you kind of have Uber, like an Uber equivalent out there, and so we were waiting for this guy to turn up, and he was taking his time. So my brother said, okay, maybe he hasn't been able to find his way. Let me just go up to the main road and see if he's there. And I was standing at the bottom of, so that everything in Turkey is apartments. So I was standing at the bottom of the stairs with my dad. And I was thinking he's not going to be able to stand for very long. And like this guy's taken ages. So then I was looking at the step and I started wiping down the step thinking, okay, maybe I can get dad to sit down here. And there was a guy like 2-3 cars up or parked on the road, and he saw me in his van and he kind of rushed out with cushions. Like he didn't have to, like I didn't ask him for help. He just rushed out. He saw an elderly man who was kind of struggling to stand. He rushed out with cushions, put them down and kind of said, no, you sit down, and sort of helped dad sit down. And that for me is just, if you times that by about 100, you'll get close to the kind of kindness that was displayed.
Okay, good. If you've got similar stories, similar experiences, can add to this conversation, please do join us. It's 07933 003 179. I think it's probably the best time now for us to go to our guests.
Yeah, sure.
For them to join us. Do you want to?
So Rihana and Rayah, are you guys there?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. So you made the move. You've been looking at going to Turkey for like a while now. In fact, you've been looking at lots of different countries. What was it that kind of drove you towards choosing Turkey as your destination?
Yes, that's right. So yeah, we've been looking to move to a Muslim country for quite a few years, and we were doing research Gulf countries, Pakistan, even Morocco, and Turkey was also on our list. And I think with Turkey, one of the things that sort of made it easier for us is it's quite easy to with regards to paperwork to actually get over here. So that was one thing. We didn't have to rely on a job. We didn't have to rely on a work visa. As a UK citizen, you know, the ties with Turkey are quite relaxed. So you can come over here on a tourist visa for 3 months out of 6. And so that made it quite easy for us to come here and check it out, which we did last year in March. So we came here and we stayed for a month. We fell in love with Turkey, you know, simply because of the many things you mentioned yourself, but the Islamic culture and the Islamic heritage of Turkey, and it's very strong. I think, you know, unless you come and actually stay here and visit all the Islamic sites, for example, in Bursa or here in Istanbul, the Blue Mosque and the areas and the bazaars, you know, you can really feel a sense of history. You can see that, you know, the remnants of the Ottoman Empire. You can feel that Islam was actually here at one point in the history of Islam. So, you know, that is a driving point. Secondly, Turkey is a very developed country. You know, it has all the amenities. You know, it has all the modern amenities. It has a good transport system. It has a good hospital system. You know. When living here, you know, we're, like you mentioned, are mainly apartments, but apartments are modern. You know, you don't have to worry about water, you know, gas, electricity, everything is catered for. You know, so I'm here with my children. We don't feel like we're deprived of anything here in Turkey. You know, we have all the amenities, we have all the utilities. So yeah, those are the main points. Another point I think is education-wise. I have my children are growing up at the age where they want to go to uni, inshallah, in a few years. So unis are another good option for Turkey, where the fees are low, inshallah. I'm sure my daughter will go into that at some point. And you know, Turkey is an easy country to live in.
Yeah. So you were mentioning there about kind of it's easy to adapt. It's easy to kind of settle there. What are the main kind of things which a family should have in place before they move out there? What are the main things for a family to sort out? Should they? So I had a question through from a lady called Aisha, who was thinking of relocating, and she said, So let's start with, what area of Turkey would you look at moving to? So Istanbul is like the main go-to area, but there are other areas, and even within Istanbul, what are the main bits of it? Is there a difference if you're from a particular nationality? Do all sort of expat British Pakistanis live in a certain area? Is there like an Arab community, a Somali community? What's the kind of makeup of different areas?
Yeah, so yes, Turkey is, it's very big. Istanbul itself is very big. So you do have to look at locations, and you have to find out what kind of communities they are. You know, some places are more conservative, like I'm on the Asian side of Istanbul, which is more conservative, whereas on the European side, it's more touristy. So these are the kind of things we have to look at. There are areas where expats are sort of being driven to, areas like Başakşehir, which is close on the European side. It's actually slightly on the outskirts of Istanbul. It's like a new area that's been made up. It's got a new hospital, new complexes, and there are many Arabs who are moving there, and many expats from UK as well. So yeah, you have different places for different types of community.
Sorry, Rihana, can I just stop you? What was the name? What was the name of that area?
Başakşehir. Başakşehir and Kayaşehir.
Okay.
Yeah. There are also areas where you have, for example, a Somali community, like Beylikdüzü is an area where Somali community gather. You have Pakistanis in the Ayub area also. So, you know, I think with Turkey, so with Istanbul, it's very large. It's a very large country. So people are not necessarily going into one particular area, but there are segments of people going to different areas. And people are looking at, you know, where can I live with my family? You know, which kind of area? For example, we chose Üsküdar area because it's a more community-based area. We felt it was a more family-oriented area. You know, there weren't tourists around. It was very easy to live here. We felt relaxed living here. So that is one of the reasons we chose our location.
Okay. So in terms of, you said that you didn't necessarily have to have a job before you moved out there. So, but for those people who are thinking of moving out there and getting a job, what kind of jobs are available to expats? Also, just highlight our number again. So it's 07933 003 179. You're listening to Ramadan Radio. If you've got any questions or any comments, please do text them. We've already had some questions which we're gonna get to a little bit later. But yeah, going back to the jobs question, what kind of jobs can you do out there?
I think you have to look at the reason why you come up here. I think, like Yusuf mentioned, people don't come here to make money. They come here to maybe live for the lifestyle. So there are jobs available, but a very yeah, I guess, for example, English speaking is one, English teaching, sorry, is one job that expats are commonly doing. So but if you are a teacher, you can teach in private school that teaches English medium, or you could, if you're an English language teacher, you could, you know, do that as private tuition, or even set up your own language center. So these are, you know, two possibilities. Another one is maybe if you're a doctor, if you have a specific qualification, you could get a job as a doctor. I think a lot of people that we know have started up businesses because that's something that is quite what's the word, possible. You know, a lot of businesses are in exports and imports. So, you know, mashallah, Turkey has many products, many good quality goods. And, you know, there are a lot of people exporting Turkish products out there, which is something that Turkey really wants to do, was to get its products out into the international community.
So that's a key difference between Turkey and the Gulf. I mean, in the Gulf, you can't go out there until you have a job. It's already secured, and then you go out there on a business visa, and then they convert that to a residency permit. And starting a business over there, as I think we mentioned last week, is, you know, there's a lot of hoops that you have to go through, and it's very, very difficult from a bureaucratic point of view. But it seems like in Turkey, it's much easier. You can kind of go there. You can make a living through doing tuition or doing some trade, or, you know, even if you've got some rental income coming from a property, whether in the UK or in Turkey, and find your feet. You know, there's no kind of compulsion and imperative to have a job before you go out there. So it just makes the whole process a lot easier.
What's the importance of knowing Turkish as a language there? Because I found that it's very difficult to get around or live there really without knowing Turkish. So does that apply to getting jobs there as well?
Yes, I think that's one of the difficulties with regards to jobs. The Turkish language is very strong here. You know, for the most part, people do not speak English here. You know, in the maybe touristy areas, you know, on the European side, people will speak a little bit of English. But without Turkish, you cannot get by. So definitely, whoever wants, you know, if you're thinking of coming over here, definitely learn Turkish, inshallah. You know, whether it's just for the everyday kind of thing where you want to go into a shop and you want to buy something, you know, we need Turkish. You know, it's something you cannot manage without.
How hard would you say it is to learn Turkish?
It's an easy language.
Yeah,
I think it's an easy language compared to like something like Arabic, and I think if you're only needing it to like go to the shops and just come and visit around, then you don't need a big amount of Turkish. You only need a little bit, but it's really easy to learn, especially if you like just like immerse yourself into like the culture, or like, you know, the TV shows, or like you talk with people at the shops and stuff. It is easy to learn. It's not such a hard language to wrap your head around.
How you've been there for almost a year, right? So how far into the language, or how well would you say you speak it already?
Not that well. Only.
Shall we give you a spot test?
No. I think I think I can become fluent in around 6 months, because I wasn't focused on learning Turkish. Some things happened earlier in the year, but like if I was focused on learning Turkish, I think maybe it shouldn't take you more than like a year to get fluent if you're really committed to it. But you do get to a point where, like, right now where I'm at is like I can go and I can talk to people and like in the shops and stuff, and I'll understand like 80% of what they're saying, and so like I can get by with whatever it is that they're talking to me about.
Should we just go to the comments and questions?
Yeah.
Because they're coming through thick and fast now. We've got one question about 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom apartment costs. We'll come back to that because we're going to talk about accommodation in a second. Just read out this comment here. Assalamu alaikum, great show so far. Thank you very much. First time listener and WhatsApper. I'm from Morocco, and I think Turkey, like Morocco, is one of the few countries in the MENA region, in the MENA area, that is quite modern but still maintains a lot of Islamic culture. It helps that both countries are also on the borders of Europe to have a long history. Of European interaction. That's a very good point. And I think that's something that we talked about earlier on, and you know, I think a lot of people feel that way, which is one of the key reasons why Turkey is increasingly becoming a popular destination. Yusuf, do you want to read out this one, number 3?
Sure. Turkey is a perfect balance of religion, culture, tradition, and modernization. Not too modern, preserving their history, and a proud nation. I think that's the best part. They're proud of who they are and what they represent. We were in Istanbul for a week. Everything was so well organized, from the airport to all the places we visited. We used the tram to commute, which we found to be on time and smoothly run. People were very friendly, but just get on with their business.
And do you want to just read this one because it's linked?
Yeah, and then there's a question that says, what's public transport like in Turkey in comparison to London's public transport? Which I think is a very good question.
Yeah, for our guests.
The public transport, I think, is on par with London's public transport, unless so I think it's really easy to figure it out. There's like, you have the maps are given to you. It's easy to like get a card. It's easy to top up. The bus system is really well put out. I think most of the time, you know, everything is on time, everything runs smoothly. I think unless because Istanbul is very big, the tram system isn't like complete yet. So unless you were to go to like the really outskirts of Istanbul, if you are like in the middle of Istanbul, you get like everything. You can get everywhere with like the tram system. And
how much does it cost?
Yeah, in comparison to England, it's I mean, it's cheap if you're coming from like the UK. I think one train journey is like tube journey is like 50p. So like you tap, it'd be 50p. And it's
very clean as well, isn't it?
Yes, it's very clean, and also it's very easy, because when I go with my children, and I feel very safe and very confident to go on the tubes or the trams, or even on the ferry. you know, so it's quite easy to get around in Istanbul.
I would say that's one of the, for me, that's one of the best things about Turkey that I experienced, is that the tube, I would say, is actually better purely because people respect each other so much on public transport. I mean, I can't, just from my observations, I'm sure from the women's perspective, they can give a little bit more, but the way that people treated women on the tube was with complete respect compared to here, right? You could, all the men, everyone's looking down. We've all got our eyes down. There's no kind of concept of feeling unsafe or like, you know, someone might be looking at me weird or something like that. Whereas over here, I think for women here on the tube, it's like, you know, not the same.
Yeah, so I think there's a certain time after which I'd feel kind of uncomfortable going on the tube over here by myself, right? So unless I was, you know, I had a friend or I had somebody with me, I kind of like be thinking, okay, is it safe? Am I, you know, is this a wise decision? Whereas in Turkey, you feel, there was never a point at which I felt anyone was looking at me weird or anyone was making me feel uncomfortable. What do you think, Rihana and Rayah?
Yes, I definitely agree with you. You know, you feel safe, you feel respected. You know, I have, you know, a number of girls, you know, teenage girls. So, you know, I don't feel that I'm worried. You know, I allow my girls to go on the train by themselves, where I would never do that, you know, in the UK. So,
yeah, I think even just in general, going out and walking about in Turkey and Istanbul, like you feel like as a woman, like you feel like you don't feel like anybody's looking at you. You feel more respected than you do in London, and you feel a lot safer. So even like recently, I could go out in the nighttime and I don't feel like scared, or I could go, you know, down like dark roads and I don't feel like someone's gonna like jump me or something like that.
Yeah, so, even your younger, there's younger children as well, right? They can just go out whenever they want, down to the shops or whatever. It's a lot safer.
It does depend on the area, but most areas in Istanbul are really safe. You can allow your kids to just go out and, you know, run about, and it's like a sense of if something were to happen to the kid, then like people would come and help if you were there. So yeah.
There's a really there was an incident that happened on a bus which I was on, which just seemed really nice. Was that somebody had young children and there were no seats available, and there were just sort of random older women who were sitting down, and they'd get one of, you know, somebody else's young child and say, here, come sit on my lap, and just and so that the child wasn't kind of swaying from side to side and they had somewhere to sit. And it wasn't considered weird, which over here I think that would just be considered really odd.
Complete no over here. You wouldn't ask somebody, do you want your child to sit on my lap on the tube?
Yeah, your instant assumption is that they're a bit of a weirdo.
Somebody will pull the cord,
yeah,
and go, you know, weirdo alert.
You'd think that's kind of dodgy, whereas over there,
it shouldn't be, should it?
Yeah, people trust.
It should be normal that people of a certain age are going to treat young kids like their own grandchildren.
There's a lot of trust. There's a lot of respect, and you feel safe. That's kind of like that's how everyone treats it.
Okay, we've got another couple of questions, and we also have a caller. So we want to bring our caller in, but just we've only got 20 minutes left, and time's going by very quickly because it's a very popular subject. Maybe we can revisit this. Just one thing, please, guys. Somebody has asked, can you spell out or write out the locations that you mentioned? Because I think it's difficult for people to understand. So maybe, I don't know, could you write it as a comment on the Facebook?
Yeah.
Would that be the best way to do it?
Yeah, we should also spell it out here in case anyone doesn't
Do you guys want to spell out those two areas, please? And then we can write them in the Facebook comments so people can have a reference afterwards as well.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. So we have, okay, we're going to type it in. So we have Başakşehir, which is B-A-S-A.
There's the Turkish letters as well, so it's easier if you just read it out. I mean, spell it.
Okay, so B-A-Ş, which is S, A-K-S-E-H-I-R, and Kayaşehir, K-A-Y-A-S-E-H-I-R.
And those are the places where the Arabs tend to move to and expat.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think we'll go to our call. Can we go to our caller, Ruxana? Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for joining us here on Ramadan Radio. I understand that you're a teacher who has moved out to Turkey. What do you have to add to the the conversation. What would you like to say?
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much for actually giving me this opportunity and taking the call. Just a few clarification. I'm actually a semi-retired teacher, and I wanted to share my experience of working abroad at an international level. So yeah, I've had the experience of moving to the Middle East and working there and actually tasting the lifestyle and seeing the culture and everything there, which was wonderful. Having returned to UK, I couldn't quite settle, so I wanted to move back. But this time, I didn't want to go and move with a job or a position. So the next best thing that we did find was Turkey, and it started 4 years ago when we visited an area called Fethiye. For a holiday, and we just fell in love with the place. Subhanallah, it was so beautiful that we repeatedly went there every year. Last year, we happened to, think about making the move there, and we actually did it. However, just a few pointers. If you are moving with a family, and especially younger children, please keep in mind the school and the education in respect of the area that you will be moving to. So if you do want your children to achieve academically in terms of GCSEs, if they want to come back here to go to university, so then you may have to consider looking at larger cities like Istanbul, Izmir, Antalya, Ankara, where there will be proper established international schools offering the IGCSE syllabus or the IB program.
Right.
But we unfortunately didn't, consider that at the time. Moved with 14-year-old, but there was no international IGCSE schools in that area. So we have actually had to return just to let him complete his GCSEs, but we've ended up with a lovely holiday home that we look forward to going back and forth to every holiday, and hopefully, inshallah, one day retire there when we're allowed to do that, inshallah. But just to let you know that yes, Turkey is a beautiful place. We felt so welcome. We've not faced any racism there or uncomfortable feelings, when going out. Nobody stares at you. And it was so, so safe. And one of the reasons that we decided to move there with a 14-year-old was because of the safety aspect.
Yeah.
Living in East London here, with all the crime going around here, we just wanted to have a safe haven for our child, for ourselves, which we did get. There's no fault to it. But yes, the only thing is that yes, just consider the schooling. I mean, for some families, homeschooling will work perfectly well. If they can homeschool their children, or if the children are happy to work online, to complete the courses, that's fine. Those families can do it in those lovely, beautiful, rural areas. But somehow some children won't find that a very good way of working, where they require face-to-face, interaction and socialization. So in that sense, it's really important for parents to consider.
We will speak to Rihana and especially to Raya, who's in school age, more about education, and hopefully we can get some more insights from them. Thank you very much, Sister Roxana, for calling in. Really appreciate you giving us your insights and your thoughts on this. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Okay.
We've got a lot of kind of practical questions coming in around the cost of 2-bedroom apartments, around, where's it gone? Monthly cost of living, rent, whether it's better to buy or rent a property. So should we move on to these kind of more practical issues? Do you want to, what should we start with? Accommodation costs, the cost of a 2-bedroom apartment, 3-bedroom apartment to rent?
So go ahead, Rihana. So how much would you say a 2-bed flat or a 3-bed flat might cost out there?
For renting?
For renting.
Yeah, so for renting, I think it's between £200 to £300 a month, which is very cheap compared to UK. I mean, we have much of a 4-bed and we pay about 300. So it really depends on how new the building is, the location, how close it is to transport, and what area of Istanbul. So that's just a rough guide I've given you, inshallah. I mean, I would say, whoever wants to come over here, they should do their research, and have a look into rental costs and also buying costs as well.
Okay, and so just as a ballpark figure, I know like it's very sort of subjective, but how much would it cost then to buy like a home out there, like a one bed for, so let's do both. So like say maybe a 3-bed for like living, or maybe if you were going to get a 1 bed as an Airbnb type option, if you wanted to make a bit of money out there, how much would those options cost? So just sort of springing it on you, but if you have
well, I can give you figures for 3-bed. So for example, a place like Üsküdar, and or also maybe Fatih on the other side. So we're looking at 75 to 80,000 for a 3-bed apartment.
Right.
Places like Beşiktaş, which I mentioned earlier, so you're looking at about 125,000
okay.
for a 3-bed. And Beşiktaş, bear in mind, they are built in complexes. So those complexes have, like a gym, a sauna, a garden, and they are new.
Oh, good.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So other places like Esenyurt are on the other side of Istanbul. You have 60 to 80,000. I think the cost of apartment really depends on the area. So some areas are maybe more, I guess, more near transport systems, near certain schools. Some areas are, where lower income families live. Some are where higher income families live. So it really depends what kind of person you are, what kind of family you are, and how much you have in your pocket, to sort of figure out, inshallah.
Okay, so just for everyone listening, if you've got any more comments or questions, you're listening to Ramadan Radio, and you can call or text in on 07933 003179. That's 07933 003179. I want to go back to the cost of a basket of goods. So how much? So if you just wanted to do your regular shop, how expensive is it compared to the UK? And maybe use some kind of UK shop to kind of give us an idea of how expensive it is out there.
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends where you shop. So you have, more bigger kind of hypermarket types where it's more expensive, and then you have your more average kind of Lidl types. So I would say, like, your normal shop would be, if you're not going to the sort of expensive shops, would be like your Lidl shopping. The cost of milk is 50p a litre. Cost of bread is about 50p. So I think that's one of the things. I think Istanbul is cheaper, but not as cheap as people think. So I think you have to bear that in mind. And also, we're talking about Istanbul. Istanbul is like the heart of Turkey. Other places, however, like Fethiye, like Bursa, are a lot cheaper.
Okay. Okay, going back to that education question that the caller was talking about, if we can go to Raya, and you can give us a bit of an idea of like what the, so I kind of have this understanding that wherever you live, you end up going to the school, which is the local school, which is in that area. That's the catchment system is. So just talk us through that, and maybe what life is like if you're kind of primary age, secondary age, and then at uni age.
Yeah, so if you're going to go to school in Turkey, if you're going to go to a public school, then you are put into the school that's closest to you. You don't have that much of like a choice to, like choose where to send your kids. So that's like for primary, I think you call it like elementary, middle, and high school here, right? So for all of that, that is all public school. Obviously it's free, but then not, I think almost every single public school is a Turkish medium. You won't be able to get by with your English. So it's not really an ideal, I guess, option for someone who's coming from like England to just go straight into a Turkish public school. But you do have private schools for all of the ages. And so especially in around like Istanbul and Ankara and these places, like you have so many private schools and so many international schools which teach in like Arabic and English and stuff like that. So that's a more viable option, but then private schools are expensive.
Okay, so when you're saying expensive, do you have any idea how expensive private schools are?
Yeah, around like £5,000 to £8,000 a year, maybe.
A lot of pocket money.
It's a lot, yeah. So that's for the private school.
Okay, and uni, what about if considering going to uni out there? What are the sort of what are the options? Do people teach in English out there?
Yeah, so you have, I think most of the unis in Turkey are in Istanbul. So you have like a lot of options if you want to go to uni here. So I'm considering going to uni next year, or maybe the year after. And you have both, you have, so you have a lot of public unis, and all of the public unis have medium of instruction in English, and most of them have it in Arabic as well. So these are public schools and they teach in English, and I think there's maybe how many? I don't exactly know how many they are in Istanbul. I think maybe 8 public universities, sorry.
Yeah.
And I think the fees are a lot cheaper than England, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's a good choice to come over here.
I think linking into our next question about expat communities, what would you say, or how easy do you think it is to kind of integrate with the other people your age in Turkey or in Istanbul?
Yeah, it's a good question.
To integrate with Turkish people is a lot harder because you really do have to have the language. A lot of Turkish people don't speak English unless they go to like uni. So when you get to like uni age, it's a lot easier if you're around the unis, if you're around the uni culture, you can make friends a lot easier that way. But when you're younger, you really do have to stick to people who speak English, expats, stuff like that.
Okay.
And there are many expat communities around here. I think when we first came to moved here, for 2 months we hadn't met anyone who spoke English, and we thought, oh, we don't know anyone. But slowly now, mashallah, there are so many English speakers over here that we know so many families who speak English, and it's easy. You over here it works like you meet one family, then you meet another. So there are expat communities. Like I said, Istanbul is big, so it is spread out. There are some in Beşiktaş and Kayışehir area. I have some friends who are there, and they tell me how over there you go out, you meet Arabs, you meet people who can speak English, because a lot of Arabs speak English as well. So, and it's a lot easier there in terms of speaking and getting about. However, I think because it's a new area, it doesn't have the culture of Istanbul. At least we feel it doesn't have the culture, which is why at the moment we're choosing to live in Üsküdar.
So we got about 7 minutes to go, but you have time to squeeze in a question if you want to text us or call us on 07933 003 179. We're wrapping up in about 7 minutes time, and after our show at the top of the hour at 4 o'clock, we have the Mind and Soul show with Ustad Ramiz Ibrahim, and he'll be talking about health, hijama and nutrition. So please do tune in for that and join him at 4 o'clock. And you can text and call him also on 07933 003 179. Somebody has messaged in to say, Salams, I don't have a question, just wanted to say that the show has been super informative and interesting. So thank you, and we'll be great if you do another Turkey episode soon. Yeah, inshallah. I think we've covered a lot, but I think we've got so much still to talk about. Maybe we can we may have to switch things up a little bit. And it's been a really good discussion on what the good points of Turkey are. One thing I want to ask Rihana and Rayah is what are the things to look out for? What are the things which not so good, but that came as a bit of a surprise to you? And also a very specific question which just come through is, can you drive with a UK license out there? But if you can start with like the things which are not so good about Istanbul, but bear in mind we've got about 2-3 minutes left.
I think what I mentioned before, I think the cost of food and things like that, I think people have the perception that it's going to be very cheap. It is cheaper than London, but it is still not as cheap as you might think. So I think to be aware of that. And secondly, I think also maybe to be aware of things like paperwork. I think one of the things we sort of didn't realize, we didn't have the right paperwork or some of the right paperwork when we came over here. So that's something it's good to have, good to get advice from people as to, what kind of paperwork we need for, different types of visas, for schools and so on and so forth. So, get all the information you can before you move out there, inshallah,
Okay, great. Do you want to read out this?
So we've got another comment which has come through. It says, Assalamu alaikum, we also migrated to Turkey over 2 years ago. My teenage son and children, strangely enough, felt a strong sense of belonging here as opposed to where they were brought up in London.
Seems to be quite a common theme,
doesn't it? Yeah, it does, yeah. They feel safe, secure and part of the community. It took about a year for them to be fluent in Turkish, so kind of marrying up with what you said, Raya. With the help and aid of a tutor. We do not regret the move, and the children seem to be children for longer here, as they are in a way protected from growing up too soon, which we thought was a shortfall in the UK, a really interesting and pertinent point as to sort of like preserving that kind of innocence and kind of purity of childhood, and that that's really interesting. So thank you very much for that comment. And Raya, Rihana, do you guys know, can you drive with a UK license out there?
Yes, you can. You need to get also an international license. You can have the UK license, but you also need a little permit that allows you to drive internationally. So you can get that from the post office. It costs £5.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Just one final question. You were talking about moving out there. Oh, we've got another question. Let's go to the question that we've got from the person online. It says, how did your children find fitting in with other children given the language barrier? Did they feel isolated?
It's one for Raya.
I would say that the language barrier definitely is there. You do feel it, especially like in the beginning months. You feel it a lot. Because of quarantine, I haven't been able to socialize as much, but now that I've got like a bit of Turkish, and you meet people through the expat community, you meet people through people, and you do feel a lot closer. For like my younger siblings, because they're younger, the language barrier doesn't affect them as much because they can just play with other kids. But it is a barrier, but it's not that hard to overcome. I would say you don't feel so isolated. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Do we have time for another question? Or
do you want to go for another?
I just want to know how you cook out there without spices, because I remember going to the shops and not finding any of those special Shan little packets, and I'm lost without those.
Other spice packets are available.
Other spice packets are available. So how did you go about cooking?
I think, I mean, in the beginning we thought, oh, we can't find spices, but you can find spices. It takes time. Once you know where they are, we can find the spices. Shan masala you can't get, but apparently I've heard you can get it from somewhere, but maybe inshallah.
And if you can't find it in the shops, you can always find it online. You have Turkish online thing.
Okay, cool. Alhamdulillah.
There are a couple comments I wanted to make about Turkey just before we wrap up. A couple of points I wanted to mention about why I like Turkey. The cats.
Oh yeah.
I love the cats there, and just the way that people treat nature there is a lot more caring. Gloss over. And the other one was just a demonstration of the kindness of people in Turkey. Is after every Jamaat, they have Turkish delight in the mosques that everyone goes and eats, and that was one of my favorite parts. So that
encourages you to go.
Encourage you to
go for the Jamaat.
Exactly, and it's just kind of like, just a nice little gesture that it gives the general vibe of the country. It just shows you what people are about there. So, also, it's very clean.
And is this thing about, can Rihana or Raya confirm this thing about the different adhans there that you were talking about earlier? Is that?
Yes, definitely. There are 5 different tones of azan, and they're beautiful, mashallah. And that's one of the things I really love about Turkey, is the azan. It's beautiful.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. So inshallah, we're just going to wrap up. Thank you so much, Raya and Rihana, for joining us today. I think your insights have been really useful. People have really engaged with them, and we've still got questions coming through. Inshallah, we might go on and do another show about this later, but coming up,
I think we will inshallah we'll do some little bit more Turkey in a future show. But we do have another show on Monday at 2 o'clock talking about the general lifestyle of an expat in the Gulf. But for today, thank you very much for joining us, and hope that you will continue to tune in for the next show and join us on Monday at 2 o'clock. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.